Hi there, it's Donovan. Do we not just love soulless corporations that make products on an assembly line for us to consume? Don't we love handing over our hard-earned cash to faceless businessmen so we can achieve happiness? Do we not? But there was a time when Nintendo didn't feel so faceless. Back when Nintendo lit a spotlight on the people that don't just make products, but pieces of art. A time when this company had a true face. That face was Satoru Iwata, former president of Nintendo. A man who is not only a corporate president, but...
In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
Iwata is a very rare person in the industry. An actual company leader that made and plays video games? That's like if Christopher Nolan was the head of Universal Studios. Iwata's colorful background made him the perfect candidate to lead a series known as Iwata Asks, an interview series that spans from 2006 to 2015 and chronicles many development details from many Nintendo games. So, let's take a look at 10 maybe lesser known facts from the Iwata Asks series. The Game & Watch was one of Nintendo's very first dives into video games. Created by legendary Gunpei Yokoi, the Game & Watch showed off what can be done with lateral thinking with withered technology, a philosophy that the company still goes by to this very day. Many credit Yokoi for the Game & Watch, but there was a little bit more of a team for this series of handhelds. In fact, there was a minuscule 5 people on the team that would sell 43 million of these things. I present to you Research and Development 1. Because it was such a small team, they had to design the systems, the games, and even the advertisements all by themselves. It was kind of like an indie developer. 5 dudes with their own individual expertise had to contribute to even things they weren't specialized in. We took turns programming the software, and like Kano-san said, we were jack of all trades, so we also participated in meetings on game ideas. We even went to shoot commercials. We hid under a box and played the game, which was connected by a cable. The top of the box was lit up and a Game & Watch system was there, so it looked like the celebrity star of the commercial was playing it. I remember how everything seemed so bright when I came out of the box. Majora's Mask had a deadly turnaround time of 1 year, so lots of stress was put onto the development team. This is absolutely insane working conditions, but it was all put up by a challenge from Mr. Miyamoto to Mr. Aonuma. It's incredible the beautiful masterpiece they created, but these should definitely not be replicated today. Those pains and frustrations bled into the contents of the game's story. In the beginning, there is a cinematic of Skull Kid transforming Link into a Deku Scrub. Perhaps there were some otherworldly machinations occurring when creating this cinematic because Aonuma had a dream exactly like this. I was thinking about an event for the Deku and have been trying to figure out what to do with it. I thought of it at home, and Dekus appeared in my dream. I woke up screaming. I went to work the next day, and that's when Kawagoe told me that he finished making a movie for the Dekus, so I had him show it to me. And that movie was exactly like my dream. I even told him, "How did you know my dream?" That's how put up against the edge I was back then. With such stressful working conditions, even Aonuma's bad dreams were seeping into his work. No wonder they did a complete 180 to the Wind Waker's more cutesy aesthetic. While on the topic of depressing Zelda, Zelda has always been seen as a game for the hardcore gamer. It's one of Nintendo's more quote-unquote realistic and mature games. With Mario, Kirby, or Star Fox at the helm, this view is not so far-fetched. Zelda is Nintendo's more serious, story-driven experience, so it's mostly seen as hardcore. But to its developers, it's important to balance the seriousness with some silliness. In fact, they make it a must to have at least some of it. But things can get out of hand if you overdo it. On the other hand, if we don't put enough of these things in the game, Miyamoto-san will always notice it and send an email saying something like, "I went to all the trouble of trying this in the game, and I was sad because I didn't get a new reaction from any of these characters in the game." I called these his sob story emails. It's really interesting seeing master game designer Miyamoto not even designing the game, but rather messing around with random NPCs or trying to get strange things to happen. But it's these little things that Miyamoto dissects that make the experience feel more real or at least more memorable. He's done the same things with Retro Studios by switching up the controls on Metroid Prime and having Donkey Kong blow at things. You want to know another story-driven Nintendo game? Oh, we didn't mean that one! Metroid Other M was so good that Nintendo decided to give the series a well-deserved sleepy time. Well, in the creation of Other M, I can't believe I just said that. In its creation, the developers of Tecmo Koei sent and received over 10,000 emails for what? Was it just Sakamoto sending the baby over and over again? Make her more robotic. Because Other M was a joint collaboration with Nintendo and Tecmo Koei, you'd think that communication would be a total nightmare, but here's what the developers thought of it. Sakamoto-san named the production team Project M. Thanks to this, we were able to communicate as equals, despite the fact that we worked for different companies. As a result, there was absolutely nothing like just do what you're told, and it was an environment where you could speak freely, whenever you liked. This may provide more insight into how Nintendo collaborates with their second-party developers. It's not so much bullying the little guy to make their desired vision, but a group effort where everyone can pitch in ideas from the top or bottom of the food chain. Really, there isn't a food chain at all. This was likely how Nintendo collaborated with Mercury Steam for Metroid Dread or Good Fuel for Kirby's Epic Yarn. From one Sakamoto game to another, let's talk a little bit about WarioWare. Something every game developer has to go through is prototyping, the phase where you throw anything at the wall and hoping it at least leaves a mark. One of the development staff, Kazuyoshi Ozawa, who is also the director of Rhythm Heaven, threw together a quick prototype of WarioWare with a motion sensor. The team thought the idea was great and showed it off to Mr. Iwata. So how do you think the businessman of a multi-billion-dollar corporation interacted with the prototype? Well, to cut a long story short, I put the Game Boy Advance on top of a swivel chair and rotated the chair. When I did this, the record player in the game matched the movement and started turning. Not only that, but the speed of the music changed according to how fast the chair was being spun. I spent ages spinning that chair around. I'll never forget that time either, because as Iwata-san was spinning that chair round and round, he'd occasionally say, "This is ridiculous," with a big grin on his face. Sometimes, the most fun ideas come from the silliest interactions. There's an interview series where instead of Iwata asking, Shigesato Itoi took his place. Itoi is most known for creating the Earthbound series. Itoi was interviewing Miyamoto for the 25th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., which, wow, that was 20 years ago, almost double the anniversary. Miyamoto appears to have a fond outlook on the flaws of his older Mario games. I think that if I were making that game today, I would fix it, but in a way, those rough places are a part of the game and even well received. So for example, when the director of a famous movie comes out with the director's cut and reworks a bunch of details, the result isn't always better than the original. I think Itoi was taking some shots at George Lucas's special editions. Even though these glitches, and they really are just flaws of the coding, Miyamoto still thinks these rough patches still are part of the original game's essence and can actually be seen as happy accidents. Makes you wonder what he thinks of all the crazy speedrun tactics in his classic Mario games. Was Miyamoto the one who killed Gay Bowser in the re-release? Let's move away from the Marios and the Zeldas and take a quick look at Fire Emblem. Hey, where did everyone go? Fire Emblem is a pioneer in the tactical RPG genre, building up your ranks and getting to know your soldiers only to make a stupid move causing their permanent deaths made the series so special to many. It's chess with the stakes that your anime waifu will permanently die. Perhaps a more controversial addition to the series is the marriage system. You can pair up different units for the love of the game. The marriage system was introduced in the 4th game in the series, but has been absent for some time. Marriage was added back into Awakening because damn, I wanted to get married again. So Awakening went all out, maybe a little too far in the planning stages. You can marry any of your comrades. So this time we were like, I want a special graphic for when you get married, and I want voiceovers for when they confess their feelings, and we ended up preparing that for everyone. At first, Kusakihara-san even said he wanted to put in everyone kissing. We were totally against it though. Apparently, there was something similar to this. Don't ask what I searched to find this. Whether this further enhanced player expression and connection to the game, or turned Fire Emblem into a Gunner bait series, is up for you to decide. Personally, just don't shove it in my face and I ain't complaining. Nintendo EPD Group 8 are the developers of the 3D Mario series. Something that's been consistent with these games is the signature Little Brother mode, where player 2 gets to sit back and mindlessly shoot things, whereas player 1 gets to have all the fun. This co-op experience has been seen in games like Donkey Kong Bonanza or Pikmin 4. Bowser's Fury even has a slightly similar concept. But this all sprouted from Super Mario Galaxy's Co-Star mode, where player 2 controlled a Luma, so basically it was a glorified mouse cursor. So why this more laid-back co-op experience? If the first player is enjoying the game much more than the second player is just playing to make the first player happy. That's right, you end up playing just to entertain the other player. That's why I wanted to make it so the second player can enjoy the experience as well. Of course, people who play together usually have some sort of relationship to each other, and that relationship comes in to help solve this issue. And by utilizing the pointer on the Wii Remote, I think we were able to have the second player play the game with a very strong sense that they were involved with the game. During the earlier stages of development, the person assisting the main player was able to spin by shaking the Wii Remote and jump with the A button. We ended up taking those features out because we felt that they got in the main player's way. Seems that the developers originally had the second player have more useful options like the spin attack and jumping. However, since this was primarily developed as a single player game, they most likely prioritized everything to player 1. But still, giving player 2 some input made players feel like they were still contributing. The developers mainly made co-op for a child and their parent, an interesting design choice still going strong in 2025. Alright, that's enough of the bing bing wahoo man. Let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles, probably the greatest game on the Wii. It's an expansive, open-world action RPG with some of the most lovable characters ever and a great emotional story throughout the bodies of 2 gigantic titans. These 2 giants are seen here, the Bionis and the Mechonis, frozen in battle for hundreds of years. Well, these 2 giants would be the inspirations for one of Nintendo's most underrated series. As an architecture major, I have to design models all the time. It's glorified arts and crafts, so I find this antidote interesting. I was heading back to the office after a meeting, and as I was on the train, I was struck by the idea that it would be interesting to have people living on the enormous bodies of some kinds of gods. That was where it all began. Hone was good enough to offer to turn it into a 3D model, so he rushed out and bought lots of materials for creating a diorama and made it. This model focuses on the 2 towering gods, Bionis and Mechonis. I also had an unrelated idea for a story, and I thought that if I could successfully combine the 2, it might well make for an interesting RPG. Just the most unique ideas come from the most mundane moments. This is the model Takahashi was referring to, and it looks so amazing. This is a concept model, that's nuts. Video games are an art. The process of ideas, brainstorming, prototype, iteration is all so fascinating. For our last fact, let's see what Iwata had to say on why he created Iwata Asks. I felt that we should accurately document the course that led to the creation of Wii. With Wii, Nintendo has taken the idea of breaking with the past and made a console with the somewhat overblown codename Revolution, all in the hope of dramatically changing the way things are done. I felt very strongly that I wanted to document this process. Therefore, in objectively telling our readers how Wii was created, I thought it would be the most expedient option for me to lead the discussions. The biggest hurdle to overcome was taking all of the important points from our conversations and turning them into understandable, readable articles. Well, I've known you since the time you worked at a gaming magazine, and since we still keep in touch with your work at the Hobonichi, the first person that came to mind was you, Nagata-san. Going back, the entire reason I started the Iwata Asks series of interviews was an event that struck me when Shigesato Itoi-san interviewed me for his website Hobonikan Itoi Shibun. As I was talking to him, I was deeply moved when I found out how much deeper a conversation could be if you're asked the right questions in the right way. This amazing series all began with chronicling the development of the Wii during an uncertain time for Nintendo. Mr. Itoi seems to be a huge inspiration for Iwata, pushing him to simply ask the questions himself. This was a little side project that the former president of Nintendo made to honestly make the company feel more transparent with its customers and fans. Iwata Asks obviously is no longer running, but its legacy still lives on with a new series known as Ask the Developer. It's pretty much the same format, and they even show development footage too. But my biggest pet peeve is that the interviewer is unnamed. It's just a faceless person or a disembodied voice that conducts these interviews, and it doesn't help Nintendo's modern stigma of being faceless. Iwata Asks also had video interviews, whereas Ask the Developer is just on the website. Iwata's soul still lingers on within Ask the Developer, and there was even a book detailing words of wisdom from him, in a book known as Ask Iwata, edited by Hobonichi once again. There's something really endearing and honestly really cool about Iwata interviewing all these developers. It didn't really feel like corporate PR interviews, but more so like friends chatting about the things that they created. I clearly haven't given the whole Iwata Asks series justice, but they're fun pieces of gaming history to look back on. Now, if only Iwata chronicled what happened in their love hotels, would I be satisfied.